live. Trying to go live.
Indicates on my end you're live.
We are now live. And welcome everybody to another fantastic 12 o'clock show with Mayor Joe. Joining us today is, now I got to get this right. Is it superintendent or is it Dr. Superintendent or is it superintendent doctor? How are we organizing the names here? I'm not sure.
They haven't given me the rules of how to use it yet.
Okay. All right, we'll go with Superintendent Dr. Melvin Brown. So we'll go with that one. How about that?
That'll work.
All right, so thank you for joining us today. Obviously, we've got a lot of things to talk about as always. We did get some good questions ahead of time, but just want to go over a couple of quick things before we get too in-depth to everything. In case you haven't noticed, it's snowing outside, so we have a couple of good things to pay attention to. When you are parking, please try and stay off the streets. Make sure you park in a driveway, so if it does snow to a point where we have to get the plows out, we can clear off the streets a lot faster. That'll be great for our streets team that are out there. And just a common courtesy to friends and neighbors alike that actually still want to get out during this COVID thing, your sidewalks, try and get them shoveled as best you can. It's always a good thing to do that. If you have kids that are on a break from their classes or taking a lunch or something, have them go out and shovel. It's always good because they're so eager to get out of the house. I've got a couple of events coming on. We do have our holiday lights. Hopefully you guys are going to start sending some pictures in of some of the holiday lights here in the Reynoldsburg area. We encourage our residents as well as some of our businesses to send some pictures in of some of their holiday decorations, and we'll get those posted out. And as you probably have seen, our reindeer are still on the loose. They were out and about over the last couple of days. I think that they were at, where were they at yesterday? Did we see? They're at Pine Quarry yesterday, so they're moving around town, so keep them an eye out for all of those. All right, so again, we know that this is probably going to be a big show. We're probably going to have a lot of questions, so we're going to go straight into it. First of all, Superintendent, Dr. Superintendent, what's bringing your family joy during COVID? You know, not the negative side and things like that, but what are you guys doing to kind of get through all this? What's bringing you kind of some happiness?
That's a great question. I know personally, I've done as much reading as I possibly can. My son and I got caught up on going through the entire Avengers chronology in order, so that's been fun. But we've also done quite a bit of Zoom calling with family back home in Virginia and making sure we stay connected in that way. And those are things we never did before. So I think it's helped us forge some new and different types of communication modes so that we can make sure we stay engaged.
Yeah. Yeah, it's different, you know, especially when it was really shut down. We would even do that with some of our friends, you know, that lived, you know, 6 blocks away, but just because we're trying to be safe and all of that. And especially now that the cases have come back, it's kind of back to that.
Yeah, I can't get my mom to do it for some reason. I can't.
Yeah. It's, some people love it. Some people can't stand it. I will say it's really weird when all of a sudden you actually meet somebody in real life that you've only talked to recently through Zoom. And then you're just like, why do I feel it's, you need to have a box around or something.
Exactly.
I think that'll be some of next year's Halloween costumes is, you know, the Zoom frame or something like that. Well, obviously you've got a lot of things going on in the school district. So I kind of want to, what are some of the biggest challenges to the school district that don't have anything to do with COVID? So take COVID out of it. You know, what are some of those big issues, a couple of big issues that the district's going to be looking to deal with over the next couple of years?
Yeah, I think 2 things that within the next year to 3 years that we're going to have to confront. One is related to COVID, although not directly. I think when kids come back to school, they're going to have some unique and different types of challenges we need to help them navigate, and closing some gaps and doing things a little bit different to make sure we can not necessarily reclaim the time we've quote unquote lost, but to make sure we're able to keep up, because I think it's given us some opportunities to grow how we deliver instruction, the types of opportunities kids get via instruction. And that's going to be a challenge, but I think that'll be fun to address. I also, from a financial standpoint, as our community continues to grow, I think we'll be facing some financial challenges that we're going to have to be creative with as long as the funding formula stays the way it is now. As the community grows and more kids move into the district, I think everybody's aware that we're a cap district. So as new students come in, we get zero funding for those students. So we have to be creative about how we go about making sure our financial picture is in a good position. I would anticipate some communication starting to go out sometime in the late January, early February. We'll start communicating some information so that we can plan ahead and give our community an opportunity to get a sense of what might be to come.
Okay. I know it's never a dull moment. Obviously, you know, Reynoldsburg is growing. I remember when I first got on the school board, I think we were hovering just a little bit over 6,000 students. And I think when I left the board, we were around 7,800 students, give or take, you know, give or take a few. So it's definitely a big thing. You know, the Cup-Patterson plan we were talking about earlier, it passed the House by an overwhelming margin. It's unfortunate that it does not look like it's going to get on the Senate's radar. But for those of you watching, please feel free and contact your state senators. You can go on to the Ohio government page and you can actually find out who's in charge of the Finance Committee, which I think is where the bill is supposed to be originating in for the Senate, and encourage them because it doesn't look like they're going to be out of session anytime soon, even with some of the COVID cases that are out there, and encourage them to go ahead and have that. Really, honestly, the best thing to do with that is to make a phone call. It's really easy to glance over an email that you get. But I've talked to a few state representatives and they said that the best things that kind of make them feel a little bit more pressure is actually getting a phone call, having their staff have to answer questions about certain things. You know, school funding's been unconstitutional in Ohio for a long time, and we have a great deal. Like I said, it passed the House, an incredibly bipartisan measure. So it's not about partisanship, it's more about just priority. And for something that's been unconstitutional for now going over 20 plus, 30 plus years, yeah, we're getting up there, 20 plus years, we definitely need to have something done. Okay, I know you and I could probably talk school finances for a very, very long time. But again, make sure for those of you watching, go ahead and contact your state senators. Now, as far as give me some positive stories. You know, we always hear certain things about what's going on, and we know that sometimes, you know, the kids are struggling because of, you know, some of the mental health issues and kind of being isolated and things like that. But what are some of the good positive things that you've heard that different buildings are doing, that things like that you'd like to share with everybody?
I think we've been able to cultivate some pretty unique mentoring relationships where groups of adults are working with groups of kids to make sure they're not only staying connected from the standpoint of academics, but also trying to work on the social emotional aspect of things. That is a conversation that's new. I mean, prior to now, we never prioritized, let's attack the social emotional issues. We're in a position now where we have to do those things, and we probably should have been doing them all along. Yesterday, my day was made because I got to watch some first graders present their nonfiction books that they were reading, and those types of interactions. First of all, I need to say I miss our kids. I cannot wait to see our kids back in seats. But watching those interactions and watching those kids master this technology and do things in ways that many adults are still struggling with, to me, it's revolutionary and gives us an opportunity to look at this entire ordeal and find tons of positivity in it. It's very easy to sit back and talk about and bemoan the issues that we've had to confront and overcome, wearing masks, all sorts of things. We can bemoan those things all day long, but there's a lot of positivity that has come out of this as well. And it's changed our conversations to the point that we're really having a focused discussion about equity, not only in our district, but across the entire state and country. Those are conversations that were swept under the carpet for a very, very, very long time.
Absolutely. I do have a couple of questions that were given to me prior. I know you had a couple of them. So first couple of questions is from Doylene Williams. The first one says, what sources should residents use to get an accurate assessment of the quality of Reynoldsburg schools? The Ohio Department of Education's report card says our schools need lots of improvement. I won't answer that one completely, but I will throw in my 2 cents. The report cards basically tell you the socioeconomic status of a school district, and really that's about it. But that's my only 2 cents. I'll let the superintendent answer the rest of that.
That was actually going to be part of my response as well. If you look at the data from the report card across the state in different districts, you'll see there's nearly a one-to-one correlation between wealth index and achievement. If you take the top 10 high wealth districts within the state, those are all A schools. Those were your top schools. That's the way that works out. So although I think we can glean some information from the state report card that can assist us in moving things forward, I don't think that the report card is a way to measure how well a school does. What I would recommend people do is when they're interested or have questions or just want to get an idea of what takes place, is to reach out to schools specifically. Go into the buildings, talk with people, get a sense of course, after COVID, but get a sense of what takes place in these classrooms, because our teachers are phenomenal. And the ways they've been able to innovate and do things from a different perspective before COVID even came about is extraordinary. We have tons of districts around us who actually reach out to us to find out what we're doing about certain types of things, because they feel they can learn from us just like we can learn from them. One other thing about the report card, does it tell us we need to make some improvements? Absolutely, but we're always going to have to make improvements. I would also say that every other school district around us has to do the same thing. So it's important to take numbers of data sources when you're going to be able to make an assessment of that sort. I do think that the report card tends to give us information that is a bit antiquated to be able to react to, because once we receive it in typically the late fall of a school year, those students have already moved on to another grade level, and we're beginning to address the needs of them in their current grade levels. So from that standpoint, I question the value of the report card as a whole. But it's certainly a data point that people can use to get an idea of things. But I certainly would encourage coming to schools, taking a look at what happens, talk with kids, talk with parents, talk with teachers.
I've had a few people actually reach out to me since I've been in the mayor's office about that. You know, what are the schools like? You know, tell me that I know you were on both and things like that. And I say you have to go into it. Some of the things that the kids are doing are just fabulous. And I cannot say enough about the teachers. And just a real kind of quick side story. We had our tree lighting ceremony the other week. And so we were doing things a lot differently. It was virtual. And so we had kids from French Run Elementary School that were participating in our countdown. So we had that on. We had another camera that was watching as the big guy Santa Claus came in and all of these other different things. And I heard some murmuring by some of the people who were there with us, you know, about how technology is so much different now, how much it's so innovative, and how right now it looked like it was working really well and seamless. And I kind of turned around real quick, and this is the old teacher in me, and I'm like, this is what teachers do every single day. And this is how they do it. And even when things go wrong, they're still able to make those kind of corrections on the fly. And so kudos to all teachers and administrators that are basically legitimately making it up as they go, but still getting a lot of good things done. Okay, enough apart of that. Next question. What percentage of the total kids enrolled in Reynoldsburg City School District live outside of Reynoldsburg? I think this is kind of like an open enrollment question.
Yeah, that number is about 7%. In the past 3 years, that number has declined each of those years. Because as our population within the district has grown, we've had to create space for our students, our resident students, who take priority over students who are open enrollment. So we've actually had to not invite some open enrollment students to come back, simply so we can maintain space for our in-district students. So we're talking roughly about 7%. I believe when I got here in 2017, it was closer to 9 to 10%. But I see that number continuing to dwindle as we get more students move into the district, which is fantastic. I just wish the cap was removed. That would allow us to provide service in a way that financially makes sense.
Yeah, for those of you watching, and just a little bit on the cap, the state gives X amount of dollars per every student. And what happens with the money that we're supposed to get in Reynoldsburg, that money actually goes to other districts that are perceived or actually have more of a need than Reynoldsburg. The idea is that Reynoldsburg could easily, as they say, they could easily raise property taxes to make up the difference for that cost. And they would take that money and send it to districts that might not have those same opportunities. Those are typically your rural schools out in the county area, things of that nature. So it doesn't make sense. Apparently they thought it did at one point in time, but again, we'll move on from that. I love this next question. It says, in what ways does the district need more help from residents, not just parents, but residents as well? What would you suggest?
One of the things we want to be able to do in 21 that we just began talking about is how we can better craft a partnership program that allows people to have direct access and impact on schools on a daily basis. So I'm very interested in getting our business folks, our community members into schools, or getting our students out to those places so they can get new and different experiences that they can then begin to hone whatever it is they want to do with their own lives. We'll be having a conversation very soon with our business partners about how we can better articulate our career pathways, not just via high school, but even pushing some of those things down in the middle school. I think some people believe that the academy structure and the way things are set up is that you have to choose a path in order to achieve or to excel. I find it a little bit different. I think it's important that we get kids opportunities to see things so they know what they don't want to do, just as much as them getting an idea what they may want to do in life. If I was to go back to middle school myself, my goal, my dream was always to be an attorney. Knowing what I know now and getting some exposure to that, that is not where I'd want to go. That is not what I'd want to do. So I think it's important to utilize community resources and people around us to get kids access and give them exposure to things.
Yeah, I was happy. I've been working a little delayed, of course, but I've been working. We're actually going to have a couple of interns at the city under the mayor's office starting in once we're able to get to that point in time. So I know that that'll be great. We've got a lot of cool ideas, and there's already been a couple of seniors that have expressed some interest in it. So I'm excited to get that in. I know we've had a couple of interns coming in from Eastland Fairfield Career Center as well. So I think you're right. I think getting people a little bit of taste of not only what they think they're interested in, but more importantly, kind of eliminating what eventually they realize they don't want to do
Absolutely.
would be a big thing.
And mentioning internships, I mean, people may not know this, but we have students within our district who are interning with us in the school district. So our kids have some opportunities that I know I wasn't afforded as a high school student. And we're very fortunate and blessed that we're in a position where we can create these opportunities for our kids.
Well, I know that's one thing when we talk about potential business partners that are coming in and looking to come to the city. I usually mention the school district because it does come up, and I talk about some of our partnerships with Nationwide Children's, with different business entities and things like that. And a lot of them are they're intrigued. Some of it they're looking for, actually paid laborers. Others, it is internship programs as well. So that's always in the back of my mind when we're talking about some benefits to coming to Reynoldsburg for businesses.
Yeah, one conversation we just started is a conversation with the Young Entrepreneurs Club, which is not in Columbus, but will be coming to Columbus in January. They reached out to us about how we could get our kids involved with that. And that is an opportunity for internships this upcoming summer with Fortune 500 companies all across the Columbus area. They'll do it through an application process. Where I want to say there were 20 different internships they wanted to award. And I want to put our kids in a position to be able to scoop up all of those if possible. So those types of opportunities are really incredible. And I'm in some ways jealous that I didn't get these kind of opportunities when I was their age, but I'm so glad we're able to provide that kind of access to them.
Absolutely. The last question, and this is a little bit more of a finance question for this one, is what % of Reynoldsburg property taxes support the Reynoldsburg School District? I know that that's kind of going back to what we've been talking about with school funding in general. A majority of school funds are going to be coming from your property taxes. And so do you have an idea as far as the percentage that comes to your district?
Yeah, of our roughly $80 million budget, it's about 29% that comes from local property taxes. We obviously, in terms of how you look at how communities are taxed throughout the entire area, we're on the higher end of things. And that's something, so our taxpayers are certainly doing their part to help schools move forward. I look forward to engaging in other conversations about how we can increase the types of ways we can get additional funds from wherever in order to provide those services. But it's about 29%.
Yeah, one of my frustrations with just the way in general the states fund schools is that they don't, everything gains value over time. Houses have become more valuable, things of that nature, but the millage rate that was locked in at the levy, that's where it stopped. So for those of us that remember the last time Reynoldsburg had a levy was in 2010. I believe, and I know your treasurer extraordinaire, Tammy, could let us know for sure. I believe that we didn't even get the full value from that levy for property taxes until almost as late as 2018. So in 8 years,
right.
yeah. So I mean, we weren't even getting our biggest bang for the buck even at that point in time. And then when the houses, especially now that we're the second hottest real estate market in the country, with our housing values going up, that doesn't mean that the district is getting more money because the housing values came up. It's just still locked into that original rate. Which is just another one of the frustrations. All right, those are the end of the questions from Dorleen. I know she had a question about a cap thing, and I'll kind of get into that in a minute. But I have my most important question. I'm speaking honestly. I'm starting a movement, and you're just going to have to deal with it. Save the snow day. It is Save the Snow Day. It's going to be a hashtag. It's going to be trending. You know, I'll go with the kid reason, then I'll tell you my real reason. You know, just those days when the snow came and, you know, school was, you know, you're sitting in front of the television, or even back in a little bit beyond that, you were waiting for that phone call when the phone trees were still out there. And then you found out that your day was canceled. And then, you know, your parents probably rolled their eyes. And then all of a sudden you're going to be like having a blast with it. You're going to go sledding. You're going to play with your kids and all of those things. And then COVID came. And then we have online learning. Yeah, what are we going to do about this? You know, we can't. Don't tell me you're not going to kill the snow day.
First of all, let's dispel the rumor that snow days will never happen again. So let's get that out of the way. That's not the case. What we'll do is assess what road conditions look like, just like we typically would do. Mm-hmm. And feel that we're in a position where adults can be able to travel safely and be able to get to destinations at buildings safely, then we may opt to have what would be called a remote day. Mm-hmm. However, if we get 3, 5, 10 inches of snow, we're going to have a snow day, because we're not going to ask people to drive all over the central Ohio region in order to get here on those types of days. The Tuesday, a couple of weeks ago, that we had a remote day, roads were fine. In the case of most kids were home, we simply, only our students who were in learning centers and our preschool students were actually in buildings for that day. We basically just said, you guys can stay home as well today. But no, the snow days won't go away. They will not go away.
Well, I can't apologize. I can't apologize for our street department doing a great job clearing the roads. I know that I'm sure there's kids all around Reynoldsburg that would probably say that they, you know, hey, take the night off, let the snow accumulate. But no, I understand. I figured that was probably what the case would be. I know COVID kind of changes some things with it, and you know, with the option for that virtual learning. But I believe that you know, those kind of days are important. I mean, I remember many times as a teacher sitting there, you know, looking just as the same thing. And it's not because we wanted an extra day off. It's just, we all know, and I think everybody knows, regardless of what job they have, some days, you know, an unexpected day off, where you kind of can take a deep breath and you can kind of reassess and things like that is not necessarily a bad thing to have. So I'm still going to put the hashtag out there just to make sure. But that's just kind of what I wanted to make sure we got across.
We'll be killing the snow day, I promise.
All right. Now we do have a couple of other questions that came up. Dorleen Williams did talk about the cap, and I kind of want to explain a little bit more so she understands. The state takes a certain pool of money and they allocate it to the districts based on the number of students that they have in a school district. When the state feels, through what other mystical, magical formula that they use to determine how many kids are supposed to be in a school district, that's how much money the state will give you for those kids. If you all of a sudden get kids that are above that magical, mystical number that they've come up with, you don't get any additional funding for that. So for every new person that moves into a residential house in Reynoldsburg, we don't get any additional funding for those students because of this formula. Now, I say mystical, magical is because we've never seen it. They won't release the formula. They won't share it with anybody. It's not something, they call it proprietary or whatever else the case may be. But what it comes out to is, I believe, about $5.5 million a year lost in Reynoldsburg?
Yeah, for us, it's anywhere between 5.2 and 5.6 that's lost this year. And that number that you mentioned, that, you know, the threshold we would meet, that number apparently changes every year. We just don't know it.
And so it takes a lot of, you know, when you're trying to budget out and you're trying to plan for staffing and things like that, you know, you have dwindling resources, even though you're really not doing anything bad. It's not that you're not spending money wisely or efficiently. You have more kids, so therefore certain things are going to come up a little bit more. So I hope that helps a little bit with that question. Jennifer, do we have any other questions on Facebook? Oh, I figured we'd have a few questions. So.
Yes, this is from James Coots. It says, will Reynoldsburg ever try to incorporate real world classes like tax prep, bring home ec back, or those types of classes that everyone should know how to do, because sometimes parents don't have the availability to teach that kind of stuff to their children?
Fabulous question. Thank you for that question. We've actually begun talking about what we can do to craft a financial literacy component that would basically be able to weave it throughout elementary, middle, and high school. Not sure how that's going to look at, but I would like to be able to have something in place in the 21-22 school year to start that process. We want to have conversations so that kids get an opportunity to understand not only just money management, but we're talking about taxes, we're talking about the stock market, interest rates, and our kids need to have an understanding of those things. Again, thinking back to when I was in school and the things that I did not learn, that would have been invaluable information to help craft what you want your life to look like. We've also talked about the idea of creating some student-run banks at our schools. That is an idea for down the road that I actually just broached last week, that allows kids to develop some savings and understand the value of money and what it means. As far as home ec and things of that nature, some of those elements are still in place. They look a little bit different, and some of that is not necessarily the fault of districts, but as curriculum have changed from the state to districts, we of course had to evolve with that. So many of those elements are still in place. They just look very, very different. But from a real world education perspective, that's what our entire curriculum is based on. Our kids are doing real world experiences all the time. The information that we're doing, that we just got involved with the New Tech Network again, to branch out, to give kids real world problem-based learning experiences on a regular basis, so they can understand not only are you learning this information, but you can also apply it to some real world situations. So that, yeah, absolutely, we'd like to increase those types of things.
There was a great program at Herbert Mills, I believe, that actually did what Reynoldsburg will look like in 2050. And they actually had it scaled out. And they had all sorts of business plans. And again, these are elementary kids that were doing it. And they had the mock-ups to scale, and they had all of those things over, I believe, under their cafeteria floor for one of their presentations. They had QR codes. The kids were doing, video presentations on their little aspect of everything. And it's funny because, now that I'm sitting on this side of everything, I'm like, you know what? Those were things that legitimately people that could need to know in our government line of work, in business development and things like that. And these are skills that kids are being taught in, 3rd and 4th grade. So I do agree. It's just sometimes it doesn't look like your traditional home ec class. What do we got next?
Exactly.
It says, does the school district have any long-term plans to try and get rid of pay-to-play fees?
We are broaching that conversation as well. When we're having real conversations about equity and access, I think it creates a venue to change your discussions. And I think pay to participate, it's an equity issue in some regard. Some kids aren't able to access things because they aren't able to pay for them. And that we certainly want to eliminate that. Now, I should also say that when kids demonstrate financial need, but yet still want to participate, we find ways to do that. I funded a couple of students myself just to make sure they were able to participate. But that will be a conversation that we'll have on the table. The issue this year in particular, or the last 2 years in particular with athletics, is the funds that are generated from ticket sales and attendance and things of that nature obviously has dwindled significantly. Going back to when we had no spectators or a few spectators. We'll see how the winter season plays out and the numbers of people we'll be able to have in. So opportunities to generate funds for the athletic program, it's important to be able to do that. And for the most part, those fees would take care of coaching supplements and scheduling kids to go to tournaments and things of that nature. But yeah, my goal, I would love to be able to eliminate that.
All right, this question is for both of you. It says, have you gentlemen submitted your videos for the Wagner Road Junior High Community Outreach Activity?
Is that Malaysia Pollard by any chance?
Pollard called us out. She called us out.
Yeah.
I'm doing mine today.
That's the plan for us today, yes. Were there any other questions?
That's all the questions.
All right, so that's all. Yeah, I figured that one was coming, so I'm pretty sure Malaysia's going to hold me onto that one. So we do appreciate it. It's just something that we're doing a little fun. Yeah, the pay-to-play thing has come up a lot. Obviously, I know when I was on originally, I think it was significantly. I think it was around $330 per kid,
I believe so.
And it was reduced after that, and it's kind of been hovering roughly around the same mark for a while. I know there was a differential for junior high versus the varsity, the high school sports and things like that. You never want to turn a kid away from being able to play sports. It's one of those things where when people would ask, I would say, try out for the sport, especially because when you get to the high school and you have whether you make the team or not, that type of stuff. Try out for the sport. If you like it, we'll figure out something. You will find a way. We'll come up with something. But it is a frustration. And again, going back to that school funding thing, if the schools had been funded fully the way that they should have been since the beginning, maybe that is something that is not, that wouldn't have been an issue. That maybe some of that funding would be able to be used for it. And it's a frustration because it's not just specifically the hardcore academics, it's also the other stuff that makes a high school or a school experience in general that much more memorable for everybody.
Yeah, I should probably say that subject's pretty near and dear to me, simply because I was a student who would not have been able to afford that and participate in sports. We were pretty poor when I was growing up, and so having an opportunity to participate in sports was new and unique and exciting. And had that been taken away simply because of us not being able to pay, that would have been pretty devastating.
Well, I've got a couple of other things to go forward, and I'm sure there's usually questions that pop in over the course of the last few minutes of the show, but I won't take too much more of your time. As of right now, based on what we've talked about, I talked with Chris Reed recently that, assuming that everything still works the same way, that we're looking to still have our Parks and Rec basketball program starting up in January. So I know I've got one who's interested in that, so our fingers are crossed that kind of works out. I do have some water department hints. I'm going to kind of add this in. We've had a lot of conversations about water, and I did not know if you knew this, but make sure that you have a low flow shower head installed. A normal shower could use about 5 gallons a minute. Typical shower is 5 to 10 minutes, and that's about 25 to 50 gallons per shower. That's kind of the average out that it works out. And again, you're looking at adding X amount of dollars per gallons of water and things of that nature. That's something. Low flow shower head could actually reduce it to about 3 gallons a minute. You can still work on the water pressure, but it would just flow differently, so it actually reduce it. But that's just one of those water saving tips that come up that I've been kind of looking at. Again, I would make a joke about teenage boys and their showers, but I'll spare it because somebody might think I'm talking about my kids. So
that was also a Seinfeld episode.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have our next fireside chat. Our last one of the year is going to be next Wednesday, and we have not to say that you are not a wonderful guest, but I think somebody who's probably even on a grander stage than the Dr. Superintendent Melvin Brown. The Santa Claus will be joining us next Wednesday. I had to pull a lot of strings to get Santa Claus in. So let's just say there's a lot of cookies and cocoa involved in this discussion, but he's going to take some time. Yep. He's going to take some time out of his busy schedule and join us next week. And so I appreciate that. Any last second questions that have come up?
Nope.
All right. So again, Superintendent Brown, I really appreciate it. I thank you for coming on. I know we'll have you back again in the spring, hopefully when things kind of settle down to a point where kids are back in school on a regular basis and all of that. I look forward to it. I know that everybody else does as well, but kudos to you, your staff and administration, everybody over there across the street for basically building the airplane as it flies, so to speak. So we do appreciate it.
Thank you.
For the rest of everybody, please stay safe, stay respectful. Please put your shopping carts away at the end of your trip. It's not that hard. There are cases everywhere for it. Otherwise, we will see you next week, and everybody else have a great weekend. We'll see you.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Bye now.